What's up? Welcome to the stack. Welcome back. If you've been here before, I'm Neon Mushroom, and today we have some Commander EDH gameplay for you guys. Nothing incredibly special about today's game. It's our normal optimized kind of power level. We've got at least one new deck that you haven't seen before, so that's cool. And yeah, that's literally everything you need to know for today's upload. So that said, let's go ahead and take a look at who's playing today, what decks they decided to play, what opening hands they decided to keep, in addition to our normal upkeep stuff.
As always, if you like this show or any of our other shows on YouTube, liking, sharing, and subscribing helps us out immensely. If you like our content and don't mind that extra mile, you can always support us over on Patreon, over at patreon.com/mtgthestack.
Just like you, Christopher Ramirez Jr.
Comment down below any of your thoughts and feelings, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Alright, first up we've got Guy playing a deck some of you are probably familiar with at this point. It's his Zacama Primal Calamity big mana combo deck. The whole point of this deck is to ramp early on in the game, maybe even trying to control the game with things like board wipes, and then in the late game use Zacama in conjunction with cards like Sanctum of Eternity to generate infinite mana and eventually try to win with either Shivan Gorge or Blind Obedience. Guy's going to be keeping a 7-card hand with a Satyr Enchanter, a Gift of Paradise, Azusa, Lost But Seeking, Sylvan Library, Brushland, and 2 basic forests. Next up there's me playing a deck that's new to the channel. It's a deck that I'm still tuning, and it's Ishkanah Grafwidow combo. The deck wants to be comboing in one of 3 different ways. The first one is generating infinite mana, and then using Ishkanah as a win condition out of the command zone. Then you have your Witherbloom Apprentice, Chain of Acid, and Chain of Smog combos. And then we have our typical green-black Protean Hulk lines. Now, like I was saying, this deck is a brand new build, and I do want to tinker with the way that the combos are balanced in this deck, but for now, that's kind of what we're working with. I'm also keeping a 7-card hand with a Scapeshift, a Malera, Witherbloom Apprentice, Worldly Tutor, Mana Crypt, Tainted Wood, and a basic Swamp. Then we have Calvin Traeger playing a build you guys probably haven't seen in a little while. It's his Esika God of the Tree build, which used to be his Golos Super Friends deck. Now this is still going to be a Super Friends build that wants to take advantage of some interesting combos in the late game, including Aminatou and Felidar Guardian, as well as Doubling Season and Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Calvin's also going to be keeping a 7-card hand with a Nicol Bolas Dragon God, Nature's Claim, Mana Crypt, Supreme Verdict, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, and a basic island. Last but certainly not least, we have Foley returning to the channel, this time with his Aminatou the Fateshifter build. This is going to be a disruptive mid-rangey control deck that wants to eventually win the game with some type of combo, almost always involving a Peregrine Drake or a Deadeye Navigator. With Foley, that makes all 4 of us keeping 7-card hands, and his includes a Brainstorm, Spellqueller, that Deadeye Navigator I was telling you about, Flooded Strand, Bajuka Bog, a snow-covered island, and a snow-covered plains.
I just ate hot chip and it's card game time.
Hot chip, 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 chip.
Hot chip.
Yo, Adrian, what's the best hot chip?
Takis.
Takis?
Takis.
Okay.
What do you think the best hot chip is?
I mean, I also think,
The band.
Do you think the best hot chip is the band?
I agree.
Your nice edgy response.
Eins, zwei, drei, vier. It's me. Yay! You guys are fucked.
Alright, I won card game, so I'm going to start off by drawing my card for turn, and in my first main phase, I'll drop a basic Swamp, and just pass the turn over to Guy. Guy's going to also draw his card for turn, and then in his first main phase, he's going to drop a basic Forest, and with no further actions, we'll go to Calvin's turn, where he draws for turn, plays a Command Tower, and follows suit with me and Guy by not playing a spell on turn 1. But Foley's going to play a snow-covered island in his turn, and then I'll tap it for blue to cast Brainstorm. That'll have him drawing 3 cards, and then I'll select 2 from his hand to put back on top, and with nothing else, he'll pass to me. I'll untap, upkeep, draw my card for turn, and then I'm going to play a Tainted Wood, which taps for green because I have a Swamp. Then I'll drop a Mana Crypt. After that, I'll tap the Mana Crypt for colorless and the Tainted Wood for green, and I'm going to play a Malera, Selvok Outcast. I'll let the colorless mana in my mana pool drain and pass the turn to Guy. In Guy's first main phase, he'll play a Brushland as his land for turn, then he's going to tap for 2, and he wants to play a Rampant Growth. That'll have him searching his library for a basic. In this case, he wants a basic Mountain. He'll put it into play tapped, and with nothing else, he'll pass to Calvin. But before he can, Calvin's going to tap for green and Nature's Claim my Mana Crypt. That'll have me going up to 44, then Calvin will untap and draw his card for turn. Then he's going to drop a Polluted Delta as his land for turn, and with nothing else, he passes to Foley, who untaps, draws his card for turn. Then Foley's going to play a Flooded Strand as his land for turn. He's immediately going to tap it, dropping down to 39, sacrificing it to get a Godless Shrine, which he'll shock into play going to 37, and then much to Guy's dismay, he'll tap for 2 and cast a Confounding Conundrum. This is going to have Foley drawing a card, and it's also going to disrupt a lot of Guy's game plan. After that, Foley passes to me, I'll untap, but in my upkeep, I'm going to tap for green, and I'm going to Worldly Tutor. That's going to have me searching my library for a Dark Confidant. I'll put it on top of my deck, and then I'll go to draw it for turn. Then in my first main phase, I'll drop a basic forest as my land for turn. I'll head right into combat and attack Calvin for 2. He has no blocker, so he takes it. Then in my second main phase, I'll tap out and cast Dark Confidant. With nothing else, I'll pass the turn to Guy, who's going to untap and draw his card for turn. In his first main phase, he's going to tap for 3 mana, losing a life to make a white with his brush land, and then he's going to cast a Satyr Enchanter. After that, he's going to drop a basic forest as his land for turn, and with nothing else, he'll try to pass to Calvin, but before he can, Calvin's going to fetch, dropping down to 37, and he's going to get a Savai Triome and put it into play tapped. After that, Calvin's got nothing else, so he'll untap and draw his card for turn. Then, in his first main phase, he's going to play a basic island as his land for turn, then he's going to drop a Mana Crypt of his own. After that, he's going to tap out completely. There's going to be a colorless floating, but he's going to let it float away because he's casting Supreme Verdict, which is going to wipe the entire board. And Calvin has nothing else, so we'll just pass the turn over to Foley. Foley's going to untap and then draw his card for turn and go to his first main phase where he'll play a tapped Bajuka Bog, and he's going to correctly target me. It's going to cause me to exile my graveyard. After that, he's going to tap out and he's going to want to cast a Talisman of Hierarchy. With nothing else, he'll just pass the turn to me, so I'm going to go ahead and untap and draw my card for turn. In my first main phase, I'll just drop a Tree of Tales as my land for turn, and then I'll tap for 2 mana, a black and a green to play Witherbloom Apprentice. That resolves, so we're going to move over to Guy's turn, he'll untap and draw his card. Then he's going to play a basic Plains as his land for turn in his first main phase, and he's going to move to tap for 3 mana. That's going to be so he can cast Gift of Paradise, and he wants to enchant his forest. Now it taps for 2, he also gains 3 life when it comes into play. After that, Guy's going to tap for 2 more mana and play Sylvan Library. With nothing else, he'll pass to Calvin, who untaps, and now he has a Mana Crypt trigger in his upkeep. So he's going to flip, and this time around he's going to win the flip so he doesn't lose any life. Then he's going to draw his card for turn and play a Tundra as his land for turn. After that, he's going to tap out completely, and he's going to cast a Doubling Season. This resolves, so he's just going to simply pass the turn to Foley, who untaps and draws his card for turn. In Foley's first main phase, he's going to play a Snow-Covered Plains as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 4 mana, and he's going to cast a Sad Robot. When it comes into play, it's going to have him search his library for a basic and put it into play tapped. He opts to go grab an island, and with nothing else, he'll just pass the turn to me. So I'll untap, draw my card for turn. Then I'm going to go into combat and attack Calvin for 2. He has to take it, so he goes to 35. Then I'll tap for 2, play Sakura Tribe Elder, and I have nothing else, so I'll pass to Guy. He'll untap and trigger Library. He's going to draw 3 cards and decide he only wants to keep 1, so I'll put 2 back. Then I'll go to his first main phase, tap for 3, and play Satisan Champion. That way, when he taps for 2 mana here in order to cast a Kalini Heart Expedition, that'll trigger the champion. He's going to draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on the champion. After that, he's got nothing else, so we'll just pass to Calvin, who untaps and once again triggers Mana Crypt, this time losing. He'll lose 3 life, dropping to 32, draw his card for turn, and play an Exotic Orchard as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap out for 5 mana and play the backside of his commander, the Prismatic Bridge. This resolves, he has no further actions, so he's simply going to pass the turn to Foley, who untaps and draws his card for turn. Foley's going to go ahead and tap for 3 mana here and cast his commander, Aminatou the Fateshifter. The first thing he's going to do with Aminatou is -1 it to blink his Confounding Conundrum. When he does that, it's ETB triggers and he draws a card. Then he's going to go to combat and attack Calvin for 2. Calvin still has no blockers, so he drops to 30. Foley then tries to pass the turn to me, but before he can, I'll sack my Elder to get a basic Swamp and to play tapped. Then I will take my turn. I'll untap, draw my card for turn, and then I'll play Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth as my land for turn. Before I head into combat, I'm going to tap for 5, and I'm going to cast an Orin Frostfang. So when I attack Calvin for 2 with my Witherbloom Apprentice, he takes it, and I get to draw a card off of my Orin Frostfang. With nothing else, I have to pass the turn to Guy, so he untaps and triggers the Sylvan. He's going to look at the top 3, decide he only wants to draw 1 of them, and move to his first main phase, where he wants to tap for 3 mana and cast Dryad of the Elysian Grove. This triggers Satisan Champion, so Guy's also going to draw a card, and put a +1/+1 counter on his champion. After that, he'll head to combat and attack Calvin for 3, who has to take it and drops to 25, and then Guy's going to try to pass to Calvin, but before he can, Foley's going to cast Fracture, targeting the Prismatic Bridge. Calvin tries to Deflecting Swat it to retarget Guy's Sylvan Library, but Foley's going to Fierce Guardianship the Deflecting Swat, causing the Fracture to hit its designated target. After that, Calvin's going to go ahead and take his turn, he'll untap, trigger the Mana Crypt, This time around, he's going to lose the flip, drop down to 22, and then he's going to go to his first main phase, where he's going to tap 5 mana and cast Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Now this interacts in a really bad way with his doubling season because it's going to cause it to come in with double loyalty. Foley does have a response before it actually resolves. He's going to tap Island for black because of my Urborg and cast a Vampiric Tutor. He'll search his library for a Peregrine Drake and put it on top. Then the Nicol Bolas is actually going to wind up resolving, and Calvin is going to -8 the Nicol Bolas. Guy and I do not control legendary creatures or planeswalkers, so Guy's going to respond by casting Teferi's Protection. However, Teferi's Protection doesn't actually save him in this position. What's going to happen is Nicol Bolas is going to look at us and see we don't have any legendary creatures or planeswalkers, and we're going to lose the game. After that, Calvin's going to pass to Foley, who's going to draw, and in his first main phase, he'll tap for 2, and he's going to cast a Grand Abolisher. That winds up resolving, so he'll -1 the Aminatou, and this time he's going to hit Sad Robot. When it re-enters, he gets to search his library for a basic land. This time, he's going to get a Snow-Covered Plains into play tapped. With no further actions, he's going to pass the turn back to Calvin, who on-taps, and triggers the Mana Crypt. He's going to flip, lose the flip, go to 19, and then go to his first main phase, where he'll play a basic Forest as his land for turn. Then Calvin's going to tap for Wooburg and 2 generic to recast his commander, the Prismatic Bridge. That's going to wind up resolving, so after that, Calvin wants to tap for 1 using his command tower, and he wants to make a white, that way he can cast Swords to Plowshares, trying to target the Grand Abolisher. Foley decides he's pretty attached to his Abolisher, so he's going to tap for blue and cast Flusterstorm, putting all the Storm copies on Swords to Plowshares. After that, Calvin's going to pass to Foley, where he'll untap, draw his card, and in his first main phase he'll play Sunken Hollow as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 5 mana, and he's going to cast Peregrine Drake. When it enters the battlefield, it has a trigger, so he untaps the lands that he used to cast it. Then he's going to count out and tap for 6 mana, this time to cast Deadeye Navigator. Now, some of you might recognize this, but I will take a moment to explain this for anyone who's seeing this for the first time. When Deadeye Navigator enters the battlefield, Foley is going to be able to soul bond it to the Drake. This gives the Drake the ability to tap 2 mana, exile it, and return it to play. But whenever Drake comes back into play, he gets to untap 5 lands, and then he can re-soul bond it to the Deadeye. What this means is until either Deadeye or Peregrine Drake are dealt with, Foley is going to be able to declare at any point in the game, while maintaining both of these permanents, that he has arbitrarily high mana. And this is because every time Peregrine Drake re-enters, he untaps 5 lands, but it only costs 2 to have it leave and come back, so he goes up 3 mana every time he does that, and he can do it as much as he wants. So before Foley decides to do anything else, he'll declare that he has an arbitrarily high amount of mana, thanks to the combo I just explained. After that, he's going to exile Deadeye Navigator to its own ability, and when it re-enters, this time he's going to have it bond with the Solemn Simulacrum. He's going to do this as many times as it takes to get all of the basic lands out of his library and to play tapped, and once he's finished doing that, he can do the trick with the Peregrine Drake again to untap all of the lands he just put into play off of the Sad Robot. Lucky for Calvin, Foley hasn't found the pieces to actually win the game yet, so he'll -1 his commander to bounce the Confounding Conundrum and draw a card. Then he'll use more of that arbitrary mana to recast the Aminatou. He'll immediately -1 to flicker the Confounding Conundrum again, and then he's going to play an Arcane Signet and an Azorius Signet, and with nothing else, he's going to pass the turn back to Calvin, who untaps, triggers the Bridge and the Mana Crypt. He'll flip, and this time Calvin's going to win the flip, and then we have to resolve the Bridge trigger. He's going to exile cards from the top of his deck until he eventually hits Teferi Temporal Archmage, which is going to come into play, and importantly, it's going to wind up coming into play with double loyalty counters. In the case of this particular Teferi, that means 10 loyalty. Calvin then gets to draw his card for turn, and the first thing he's going to do is -10 this Teferi, and drop an emblem that says that you can activate your Planeswalkers on anyone's turn anytime you can cast an instant. That happens, so then Calvin's going to tap for 2 and cast Brought Back. Foley doesn't like that at all, so he's going to generate arbitrary mana and Spell Queller the Brought Back. A lot of you might notice that Foley's board state is going to make Spell Queller quite good. If you don't know why, you'll probably see why in just a moment. After that, Calvin's going to pass to Foley, who untaps, draws his card for turn, and then plays a Glacial Fortress as his land for turn. Then he's going to -1 Aminatou, flicker the Confounding Conundrum, draw a card, go to combat, and attack Calvin for a grand total of 13. Calvin has no blockers, so he drops all the way down to 6. Then Foley is going to be very rude. He's going to flicker his Spell Queller, but Calvin can't cast the Brought Back because there's a Grand Abolisher in play that says he cannot cast spells during Foley's turn. After that, we'll go to Calvin's turn, where he triggers the Bridge and the Mana Crypt. He flips, loses the flip, drops down to 3, then reveals cards until eventually he winds up hitting a Tamiyo Field Researcher. It comes in with double loyalty. Again, this Planeswalker is in emblem range, and then he's going to draw his card for turn. The first thing he's going to do in his main phase is he's going to -7 the Tamiyo. This is going to create an emblem that is basically omniscience, and he also gets to draw 3 cards. After he's done this, he's going to try to Enlighten Tutor, but Foley's going to respond by putting it under the Spell Queller. That happens, so then Calvin's going to get to cast another spell for free. This time it's going to be Teferi, Time Raveler. Foley likes that even less than the Enlighten Tutor, so he's going to flicker the Spell Queller, put Teferi under the Spell Queller, and then he's going to let Calvin cast Enlighten Tutor. That's going to let Calvin search his library for an enchantment, and in this case he wants to get a Humility. He's going to shuffle his library, put the Humility on top of it, and then still in his first main phase, he's going to tap for 7 mana and overload a Cyclonic Rift. Foley does not like that, so he's going to counterspell the Rift, and Calvin is going to meme and he's going to cast Flusterstorm. Foley pays for it about 1,000 times. Calvin has no further action, so he passes to Foley. Foley really doesn't have to do anything here. He draws, he attacks Calvin with everything. Calvin drops well below 0, leaving Foley as the winner of today's game. I'm pretty sure that's the second win that Foley has taken with his Aminatou deck on this channel in like the last 2 months. When was the last time Aminatou was on? I'm actually blanking, but I know he's won with it at least once. Here at the end, I just want to talk about how the game went in no real particular order, and just have a quick chat before we leave this game and move on with our days. The deck I want to start with is actually mine, and it's not because of any real impact it had in the game. Just I want to talk a little bit about the Ishkanah deck before we talk about everyone else's deck, because it's a deck I'm going to be tuning for a little bit. You guys are going to see it be played in live streams, and I think there's a lot of really cool ways to build Ishkanah Grafwidow. So the way I built it, like I was alluding to, is kind of a combo deck that can go one of 3 different ways, and I think there might be a better way to build it where you optimize it to do kind of just the lands thing. I'm not going to go too in depth on exactly how the lands infinite mana combo works, but it involves 3 lands really are what you need, and an artifact. You need your Rings of Bright Earth, a Deserted Temple, an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, and a Cabal Coffers. There's a way you can sequence that so you can generate infinite black and win with Ishkanah, and I want to do that. If you don't know how it works, don't worry about it too much. I will definitely be talking about it more in the future. But this deck, like I was saying, has 3 main combo lines, and I did have a Witherbloom apprentice this game that never wound up mattering because I was kind of interacted with at every point of the game. Calvin very quickly opened up with a Nature's Claim. Given I probably could have played my Mana Crypt a little bit later in the game than I did, I didn't really need to do it to jam out my Malera, which I didn't even need to play, but I wanted to have some type of curve. And I was really punished because I let Calvin use his mana optimally on my Mana Crypt. Other than that, there was the Supreme Verdict, which kind of set me back with my Dark Confidant, and by the time I was able to establish another card draw engine, in this case that would be my Oran Frostfang, I didn't have a legendary permanent, so both Guy and I were knocked out of the game very quickly. There was really, it doesn't matter what tune I brought to the table that game, I probably would have lost the game the same way either way, which is why I just kind of wanted to open with the Ishkanah deck, because I just wanted to talk about it for a second. Anyway, next up, let's talk about Guy and his Zacama deck. This is the problem with the Zacama build, even when he doesn't get targeted, and I would definitely say he wasn't really targeted this game. He couldn't race what Ryan and Calvin were both doing, Ryan being Foley. Foley is his last name for anyone who's confused as to why I sometimes call him Ryan, and I sometimes call him Foley. Anyway, Guy was kind of doing this cool Enchantress thing that he's recently put into his deck, where he wants to like make his lands tap for more than 1 mana to make his Zacama combo more efficient. So because of that, you play Enchantress effects, where when you play an enchantment, you draw a card. That was showcased a little bit in today's game, but ultimately it didn't really matter. He thought that Teferi's Protection would, get him out of losing the game, but I think that's like the first time he's cast that card, and even though it seems like Teferi's Protection always just protects you from losing the game, not really. Actually, Teferi's Protection can get you into some pretty weird spots where if someone like Thassa's Oracle combos, you not only are you dead, but you couldn't interact if you wanted to because your lands are phased out. So Guy didn't really do a whole lot that game. And then let's talk about Calvin, because Calvin was highly impactful, and his deck did some cool Calvin Traeger Planeswalker stuff. He opened the game very slowly and very deliberately. He was able to deal with my Mana Crypt, which was great. My game, I would have gotten a little bit out of control if I was left with a Mana Crypt for like 2 more turns. And then he had his own Mana Crypt, so he opened with the Supreme Verdict to clear out the board, and then he was able to follow it with the Doubling Season and the Prismatic Bridge. The bridge was dealt with, but it wasn't a huge issue. In the mid game, Foley was also starting to ramp up his resources, but Calvin was able to reestablish the Prismatic Bridge, and he had the Doubling Season in place still, so we saw things like Teferi come out and drop an emblem, and Tamiyo come out and drop an emblem, and we even saw the attempted Cyclonic Rift. If Ryan didn't have the answer, if Ryan Foley didn't have the answer to the Cyclonic Rift, that could have spelt Foley's death. Fortunately, he had all the pieces he needed. But it was good sequencing from Calvin. Expect to see more of his Super Friends deck. You guys have seen a lot of it before. It was just disguised with a different commander. That was his Golos Super Friends deck. This is very much the same, deck that he's been working on for basically his entire career playing Commander. Good showing. He didn't quite win the game, but it was close. Foley did the good stuff. He did the really old school Peregrine Drake, Deadeye Navigator. You usually want to add another piece besides like Sad Robot so you can draw your entire deck. Unfortunately, Sad Robot doesn't draw you a card unless it dies, so it doesn't operate in this way, in the combo, the way you'd want it to. You want some creature that enters the battlefield and draws a card. If he had that, he would have won on the spot very quickly, because I believe this deck does play Thassa's Oracle Consultation combo, and if you play Oracle in your deck, all you gotta do is draw your whole deck and you're good to go. So he wasn't able to win on the spot, but he was able to establish the Peregrine Drake and the Deadeye Navigator. And then one of my favorite things was the Grand Abolisher with the Spell Queller. It made it really insanely hard for Calvin to get anything going, because you saw when Calvin cast the Brought Back, Foley was able to put it underneath his Spell Queller, and then on his turn he was able to flicker his Spell Queller. The Brought Back left the Spell Queller, but Calvin couldn't cast it because it was on Foley's turn. This same loop also works with the 3-drop Teferi, Teferi Time Raveler, the one Calvin tried to play, except for it stops opponents from casting spells at instant speed no matter what, so it actually is just like a soft lock out of the game. But Foley ended up never needing it because Calvin was pressured enough that he was able to Alpha Strike him with just combat damage, which was great. That was an awesome game. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. That's all I have for you guys today for the game. I do want to show this off. We had a mailbox problem because we did a playmat giveaway for a lot of you, 2 people. It was already announced in like a video or 2 ago for who got the playmats for the giveaway. But I have here with me the playmats themselves because we were able to get our keys for our mailbox. We got locked out of our mailbox for a minute. So this is how the playmats actually turned out. I actually can't see if this is popping up very well on camera, so I hope it is with the stitch edging and everything. So we might be playing with more stitch edging stuff. These are the only 2 playmats of this type. We made them specifically for this giveaway, but that's just for either, I think it's Ryan Cawley, or that was the Patreon giveaway, and then I can't remember who. It was like a 4-letter acronym that won it from the general public. Anyway, I just wanted to show those off because I thought they were cool. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.